A quiet phone feels like a lie. Some habits are just slow goodbyes. It started with a singular, innocuous Tuesday. One of those nights where the digital barrier between us felt incredibly thin, almost non-existent. We traded thoughts like we were hoarding currency, terrified that if we stopped typing, the momentum of this newfound connection would simply evaporate. It was effortless, the kind of rapid-fire exchange where you don't realize you haven't blinked in 10 minutes. By the time I finally set my phone face down on the nightstand, the glow of the screen had imprinted itself onto my retinas, and the rhythm of your typing had become the soundtrack of my evening. The next day, the shift was subtle, almost imperceptible. I found myself checking my screen with a frequency that bordered on a nervous tick. It wasn't an obsession, at least not yet, it was more of an anchoring. I just wanted to see that little bubble pop up, that familiar vibration against the desk that signaled I was on your mind. You sent a message at 10 a.m., something simple, a link to a song or a throwaway comment about the weather. I replied instantly, eager to keep the thread spinning. But then, the gaps began to stretch. At first, I told myself it was just life. You were busy, you were working, you were human. I mastered the art of justification. I stared at the active status, watching it blink on and off, trying to decipher the logic of it. Does being online but not answering mean you're ignoring me, or just distracted by the clutter of your own day? I found myself performing little rituals of restraint. I wouldn't open your previous messages again, even though I knew the words by heart, because I didn't want to seem like the person who was waiting. I started timing my own responses, trying to match your pacing, as if creating a manufactured symmetry could mask the fact that I was the one leaning in while you were slowly pulling back. That's the thing about a new habit, you don't realize it has turned into a dependency until it starts to fail you. It's a very specific, mundane agony to hold a phone that feels physically heavier because it's silent. It's the way you stare at the lock screen while you're doing something completely normal, like boiling water for tea or brushing your teeth, wondering why the notification hasn't arrived yet. I remember looking at my screen while waiting for the elevator, my thumb hovering over the app, feeling the sharp, hollow pit in my stomach. It wasn't a grand, cinematic heartbreak. It was just a quiet realization that I had given you the power to dictate the quality of my day, and you didn't even know it. I started overanalyzing the mundane. I would count the minutes since your last message, then the hours. I would reread our first night of conversation, trying to find the point where the inflection changed, where the warmth turned into something more polite, more distant. Was it something I said? Did I come on too strong, or was this just how you operated? I became an expert in the geography of your absence. I knew the exact time you usually went to sleep, the time you took your lunch break, and the exact windows of time where your silence was most deafening. The most exhausting part wasn't the waiting itself, it was the performance of being chill. I would craft responses that sounded breezy and lighthearted, while my heart was actually racing, anxious that I'd said too much or not enough. I was tired. I was so incredibly tired of trying to understand a language that was becoming increasingly illegible. I wanted to ask, why did you pull away? But that would require admitting that I had been keeping score. So, I stayed silent. I let the silence pile up between us like snow, cold and muffling, until it became its own kind of wall. I remember watching a movie that night, but I couldn't tell you a single thing that happened in it because my eyes were constantly darting to the corner of my laptop, waiting for that notification chime. It's such a small, pathetic detail, to be sitting in the safety of your own room, with a warm blanket and a good film, yet feeling completely exposed because of a gadget that fits in the palm of your hand. That's the reality of it. You become a prisoner to an algorithm, waiting for a signal that confirms you still exist in someone else's peripheral vision. The insight, the one that hurts the most, is knowing that I am not the one who changed. You were just being yourself, and I was the one who built a cathedral out of a few hours of conversation. I turned a flicker into a fire, and then felt betrayed when you didn't keep adding fuel. It wasn't that you stopped caring, it was that you never felt the same weight of urgency that I did. You were just having a conversation, I was looking for a home. Now, when the phone vibrates, I don't jump anymore. I don't rush to see if it's you. I've learned to manage the silence, to let it sit there without trying to fill it with my own anxiety. But sometimes, when the house is quiet and the night gets late, I still catch myself looking at the dark screen, wondering if you ever think about that first night, or if it was just another Tuesday for you, and a life-changing moment for me. We are two people living in the same timeline, but we are experiencing it at completely different speeds. I am still waiting for the rest of the sentence, while you've already turned the page.